watching somebody succeed and watching them see or do something that they think they couldn't do brings more joy to my heart than anything else. You have the courage to take that jump, to take the leap, to do it, and whether you fail, got it. We can fail 100 times, but the one time you succeed, now it becomes that much easier.
All right, welcome to the Doing the Work podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Schindler, and it is an absolute pleasure to introduce my guest today, Command Master Chief Retired Jesse Cook. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the past year or so. I think we had some communications while you were in the process of moving to Bastrop, and then and then you and I have gotten to be some good friends since then. So well, I was doing my research for the show. And hey, you know, I do my homework. And so did you know that you and I joined the military in the exact same month of the exact same year, June 1995?
June of 95?
Yeah.
I did not know. That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So
yeah,
we were actually closer in age than we are the same dang age.
I was 17 and you were 18. But yep, that was and then I had a 6.5 year break in service. So, you obviously have a lot more and do have a lot more years of service than I do. So
you got a little bit more experience on the other side of the fence, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk, to you about your military experience, the lessons that you've learned, some leadership, and what you're doing now. You know, so we're going to dive into all that stuff, but give our audience just a little bit about yourself, you know, just kind of like the elevator speech about, you know, where you're from and what led you to where we're at today.
Okay. I grew up outside of the state capital of Washington State, of Olympia, Washington. There's a little park called Boston Harbor, and it was pretty rural. It was pretty much on the water, so there was no surprise if my parents told me to go out and get some oysters or some clams and go home for dinner or go catch a couple crabs. We were very it was not a lavish lifestyle, right? We were actually very, very poor growing up. And through growing up like that and then kind of being very self-sufficient, that applied to a lot of lessons off down the road, right? Especially being in the military. But
yeah, absolutely.
Very, very thankful for my upbringing, very thankful for my mom and dad. I don't know how they put a roof over me and my brother's head. I have a smaller brother. He's taller than I am. Younger brother. I honestly have no idea how they did it, but they were able to do it. We always had shoes on our feet, and I had a hat on my head and a roof over my head, and we were in school the whole time, right? Joined the Navy when I was 18, which did we just talk about that on the podcast, or was that before we hit play?
No, we just talked about it.
See, this is where my memory's at. Okay, so so I joined 18 right out of high school, right? 2 weeks out, joined the Navy. My goal, my dream was to actually be in the submarine force. So I'm 12 years old. My dad brought me on a tour of the USS Olympia, which is actually still a commissioned submarine today out in Pearl Harbor. You can imagine if I'm 12 years old and I took a tour of it, and now I'm 50, and that boat is still rolling.
I can't believe that.
The crew and the Navy is taking care of it, right?
Yeah.
But I was absolutely just blown away at this very strange lifestyle of being secretly hidden underwater. And I remember the crew talking about it. Like, we could sneak up on different countries and they'd have no, and I'm 12 years old. I'm like, okay. I'm fascinated. So I went home and I built my bed underneath the parents' coffee table, right? And so because I saw their racks and how small they were, and I was just fascinated by it. And so 2 weeks out of high school, joined the Navy, went to boot camp off to Groton, Connecticut, which is the submarine capital of the world. And I was a submariner. I ended up being, I don't know, a lot of people say stuck in Connecticut. I didn't have a choice, but I was there for 23 years. And none of it was
wow.
Really, I had orders out of there 3 different times, and then I had my orders changed 3 different times to stay there to keep to stay there. And there's one thing, like in a career, right? is your career will always move forward and do well if the next job you take is one step above than where you were. You never want to settle for things, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
group setters, I'm pretty sure this was the same in the Army too, is a lot of guys want to stay in one base or one thing, and the only way to do that is to, well, I'm going to settle for this mediocre job or this lower level job so I can stay here.
Yeah.
Um, that was never the case with me. They were always putting in me one further um, pay grade up, I guess, and then I had to earn that pay, earn into it.
Right.
Um, so, and then after 23 years of that, a lot of deployments, a lot of really neat stuff. North Pole a few times. I went into aviation after doing my first command tour on a submarine. Enlisted command side. Um, I went into aviation to VFA 97, which actually that's my coffee cup right now. They're out of Lemoore, California. They're F-18 Strike Fighter Group, which they're F-35s now. We did a combat cruise, shut down ISIS back in 2019, which was unbelievable. And then from there, I was the command master chief of NAS Fallon, which is out of Nevada, northern Nevada. Fallon is the school, basically the aviation training ground for all of naval aviation and Air Force aviation also. So because Nevada's a bomb range. The entire state is a bomb range, and it
Yeah.
happens to look like Afghanistan and
I
Iraq.
know. I actually lived in northern Nevada and southern Nevada, so I know
Yeah.
Nevada well.
Yep. It's pretty desolate. But I love that state. I mean, I am a fan of Nevada. It is maybe because I like that desolate, that isolation from my whole submarine career, and then you put me out in the middle of the desert, and I'm at home.
Yeah.
But from there, I retired, and then I lived in California at my fiance's. We had a place in California when I was stationed there. She was a school teacher, and then we decided to move to Texas for her mom and dad. She grew up in Austin. She's one of those unicorns, and I told her the only way I'm moving anywhere is if I'm not living in a city. I need to be away from human beings. So if I want to go visit humans, I'm good. I can go
Yeah.
away and go to my little piece. I got 25 acres out here in the middle of nowhere in Smithville, Texas. And like, if we just like be quiet for 1 second, yeah, that's the extent of the noise out here. Right? It's
That
peaceful.
sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
That's great.
that brought me to you was CrossFit. So back in when did I start sport? This sport of fitness. 2009, 2010. I was on the USS Texas, actually stationed on the Submarine, Texas, and a buddy of mine wanted to do 108 count bodybuilders for time. I didn't know what that was, and I was very not fit, very thick, about 230, 240 pounds, considering I'm 180,
Really?
185 now. Yeah, I was a big boy,
Wow.
big boy for me, and I did it. I hated it. I didn't, everybody says they do like a workout in their first one and they're like, oh my God, it's the greatest. I want to do this. No, I hated every second of that entire workout. And then I did it again, another one, and I hated every second of that workout. I hated it for a year. And then I started seeing results and I went, oh, I get it now. And
Yeah.
then became a coach, New England, California, Nevada, and then just trying to just stay fit and just loving it. And then when I moved, when I came to Texas the first time, my fiance Nicole, she's friends with Katie, right, which you work with,
Yeah.
at Strive, and they used to, I think they worked out together, or she coached Nicole years ago, back in like when they were all out in Austin. And so she's like, hey, reach out to her and find the gym. And then you and I think we met like day one.
Yeah.
And ever since then. And, life got in the way, moving back and forth. You guys built a whole new building. We came out here and it was like, all right, this is what we're doing. And this is how we're doing it. And I love it. Absolutely love it. And then we got our little masters crew, right? You, me, and Jake, and there a few others in there. And
Couple others. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean
absolutely love it.
that's what I think about is just like how much you and I have in common, through life experiences, but also like philosophies in life and perspectives, and that's a lot of the stuff that I'm excited to kind of dive into with you today.
Yeah.
And what inspired me really, I'd been thinking about having you on the show, but what really inspired me most recently is that you've started a nonprofit, and you've left your military service, and you took a couple years in there to get lost, and then get found again through a new mission and a new purpose, which is the Twin Screws Foundation.
Yes.
And I was reading your mission statement again, before the show, and I just love what you represent. So, tell us a little bit about that foundation.
Absolutely. So Twin Screws, just the name in general. Oh, let me how it started, right? So last year, I'm an avid backcountry hunter. So every fall I disappear into the woods. I'm gearing up for an elk hunt right now in Arizona in 15 days.
Yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it?
It's that time of year, and I always tell Nicole, I go, don't plan anything like weddings or nothing. Just you're going to be going not +1 if you go.
Yeah.
But anyway, last year I invited a friend who had never been hunting ever, and it was an archery. We did archery elk up in Colorado, and I had another friend who lives up there in Meeker, little teeny town. And he hunts every year with some old Navy buddies who turns out they're all old, retired Master Chiefs. My buddy was a retired Master Chief. So here we are. We are a group of guys with all retired E9s, right? And then I invited a young man who used to work for me when he was an E6. His wife was our ombudsman, right? Our liaison to command and everything else like that. And then another friend of mine who I kind of met through a podcast, actually. He had a submarine specific one, and they had never done anything like this either. So they all came out. And that happened. They both live in Colorado, so it made it a little easier. And we went and we did this, and we had fun, and we talked around the fire. We had a couple of beverages. We had just that spark of old military camaraderie and the shared experiences we once had. We got to kind of not relive them, but talk about them and see how they've exaggerated over the years, right? But when we got done, we're sitting around and we're like, we need to try to do this not just for us, but I wanted to share it. And the other retired nines were like, well, how do we do that? We don't know how to do that. And a lot of guys, when they do retire, they like to hang up the responsibility. I want to say, because I don't want to talk bad or make it sound disparaging, right?
Yeah.
A lot of guys,
Well, they're tired.
They're tired.
You
They
know?
want to hang up that responsibility piece, right? They
Yeah.
wear the hat, but they want to hang up the responsibility piece, which I fully understand. My problem is, I think I'm still too young to hang up that responsibility piece, right? I was ready to hang up the career because just, military and it's time, and you're like, okay, well, I'm tired of this. But there's still, I need, there's still sailors out there, and there's Marines, and there's soldiers, and airmen, and spacemen.
Yeah. Nowadays. Yeah.
Out there that still look for something, right? And I think the active duty component, and which was part of Twin Screws, is right. I wanted to pair active duty with a veteran into a space so we can actually talk about issues, what an active duty sees, what a veteran sees, and the experiences too, and then maybe hopefully imprint on each other and learn from each other, right? And
Yeah.
so I still think I think the active duty side is very limited of what they can do, right? So one of our primary things that we focus on is suicide awareness, veteran suicide, which is horrific, right? The numbers, to look at the numbers on a piece of paper it's scary when you see it. And I will say that every single veteran and every single active duty, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, have thought about it at some point, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a difference in there of what decision they make not to make that final decision. Well, the active duty side of it is it's very cookie cutter, right? If something happens, and you know this, right? If there is an ideation or an actual attempt, or not only attempt, but the person succeeds, it's a by the book response that they have to do, right? And there's a legal aspect to it. They have to do it. They have to do it this way. They have to get the people together this way. They have to do that, right? But there's also the mission piece of it, where if you dwell on it more than a week or even 2 weeks, you're failing at the mission now, right? You have to be able to compartmentalize it. You have to put it in the back seat. You have to be able to move on.
Yeah.
Which in our younger days, probably wasn't really an issue, right? Because well, and it's probably not an issue for any younger person necessarily, right? They can pack it away a little bit more. So when you get a little bit older, the things start surfacing. In
Right.
today's day and age, we always talk about with therapy and everything else like that. Well, therapy is very limited on the waterfront. And I'll speak the Navy terms specifically, is we have in Groton, Connecticut, there is 18 submarines. 18 submarines, 150 sailors per submarine. That's a lot of people. And then you have all the
Yeah.
supporting commands that support those submarines. Then you have the training commands up the hill. Then you have a hospital. You have all these things. There's 4 therapists, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you're booked. You're very,
Yeah.
very well booked. So when things start happening, right, you're left to get creative on how to help people. And that's where I think this foundation can kind of come in and be one of those things. I'm not going to be I'm not the optimist where I say we're going to prevent or we're going to stop veteran suicide, right? We're going to end this epidemic. We're going to battle and we're going to fight and we're going to win. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And using those words, I think is actually very, it defeats the purpose of it, because what happens is if you keep doing those, somebody else now takes their life, you just got beat, right? Now you're defeated, and then you become a defeatist, and then you're chasing your tail, and then you're becoming more reactive, and you just lose steam. So if we can just maybe have one person change their mind, right? Make a
Yeah.
decision, maybe delay a decision. That's a win. That's a
Yeah.
huge win for me, and the organization, and I think all veterans, right? It's just amazing, and I think my dog is about to bark at a cow walking by.
That's funny. My dog got kennel cough from the daycare, and so she's been puking and coughing.
Oh
So if you
no!
hear her, yeah. So it's we've got maybe having the same issue, but
Oh no! Yeah, we got
yeah.
no cough. I just got cows that she likes. She's surprised. Like, okay, it's another cow, dog. No, don't be surprised. But anyway, so that's kind of where Twin Screws came from, and it got birthed from that. And then going through just we actually became an actual no kidding foundation in February of this past year. So I got
Yeah.
my 501 letter, got that actually organized, and what goes into establishing a 501(c)(3). It sucks. It is.
Yeah.
It's a business. It's a
It,
legit business, right? You got your articles of incorporation. You have your bylaws that you have to have. You have to have this. How many shares are there? I don't know, shares, right? And then you got to get people on board. We got board members, and then unlike a regular business, I don't have a product to sell, right? So
right.
now I have to fundraise, and I feel like I'm holding up my cup a lot, like shaking it on the end of the corner. Um, I thought about maybe trying to make. I think I've got asked for like swag and like hats and shirts and run like a part of a business. But then you put it back into there. But I have to find the right accountant or right lawyer, because that's like legal money laundering, right? So I got to figure out the right way to do that, so I'm not getting
Yeah.
into the racketeering piece.
Well, I think you nailed it. Like what I went to grad school for was community administrative leadership and in the nonprofit sector. And so and people don't realize this, that it is a business. That's where I learned
Yeah,
everything about, I'm a business owner now. I don't work in nonprofits anymore, not directly anyway.
right.
But no money, no mission. Right, that's what it
Correct.
comes down to. And if you've got to learn how to make money, raise money, and allocate that money properly in order to at least run a successful nonprofit. There's a lot of really unsuccessful ones out there,
There's
but
a lot of unsuccessful. There's a lot of successful ones that aren't doing what they advertise, right? So if you look like if you take a Google veteran nonprofit, not just
oh,
in Texas but the country,
oh
it's
yeah,
completely it's a saturated market. And Wounded Warrior, I'll use Wounded Warrior. Wounded Warrior's gotten better. They had a big scandal. I don't know if you remember that
yeah,
about.
they had their issues, but they turned it around.
They did. But if you looked at their operating costs like back then, right? I think it was only like 15% of whatever they earned went to veterans. The other 85% went to operating costs. What is that? That's
Yeah,
advertising, which they did a good job, but also it's a veteran organization, so a lot of people will do free advertising for them, so they don't necessarily have to pay. But the salaries, right, was I don't right now. It's my operating costs are about 98%. So any kind of advertising I do, if I made those flyers, we reprinted those flyers by the way. That will get written off.
Yeah.
That $50 right there is an
Yeah.
operating cost. I don't take it. I don't want to take a salary. I have no desire to take a salary from this thing ever. A good friend of mine, I had a thankfully got to chat with him yesterday. Brian Shantosh. He goes as Tosh, right? He's the chairman and president of Big Fish, the Big Fish Fund,
Yeah.
and they are they've been successful, and they're becoming more and more successful every year. And the more they do this, and it is, I got involved with them 2 years ago now, and that's what I wanted to model this after was kind of that, and then operate not under their umbrella, but on along the same lines as their focus. And then there's my focus, which is the active duty side of it, right? And
Right.
bring that active duty thing because I still have friends. I'm still very, I'm only 2 years removed from active duty. So
Right.
all of my friends now, all my peers that stayed in are running the Navy, right?
Right.
They're legit in charge of it. So we have Fleet Master Chiefs and Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy I served with. So I'm trying to leverage that now before they decide to retire, and then I'm kind of like swimming through and trying to make new introductions and swim through that legality and the bureaucracy of what the Navy is.
Yeah. Well, there's two things that really stood out for me in your mission statement, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit,
Yeah.
but they are near and dear to my heart, which is the word purpose. And you didn't say this directly, but to me, meaningful community. And you kind of talked about this a little while ago when you were kind of talking about your background and everything, is just and how you got the nonprofit started, is how people come together to support each other and lift each other up. And you'll never know the really horrific outcomes that you prevented. You'll only know what actually happened.
Right.
And so when people wrap themselves around each other, and maybe multiple people wrap themselves around an individual, beautiful things happen. And those two things are really important to me. So I'd love to kind of hear just a little bit about like what is that mission statement and what is that vision for the organization?
So you're talking about my purpose, right? The everybody's purpose.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I wrote that, and what is very, very important to me, and I think it's important to, and I'm going to speak to veterans, right? When we joined the military, vast majority of us wanted to serve something greater than ourselves, right? So we wanted to serve our country, or we wanted to make our parents proud or our grandparents proud, maybe a legacy thing, right? And then there was a reason behind that. And when I joined, it was to make my dad proud. My grandfather was he was a naval aviator in World War II. My other grandfather
Cool.
was a master sergeant in the Air Force, right? And there was some legacy there. And my dad was in the Air Force too, even though he loved the Navy, but he was in Vietnam. And so my purpose was to serve the country, serve the flag, right? And if necessary, die for my country, right? And I remember very vividly, I don't know if you remember this, when you went through MEPS, right? And you're raising your hand and we're swearing our oath before we go off the boot camp. I remember in the middle of that oath, I don't remember the oath, and I do now just because I said that oath probably 10,000 times. But that day, I don't remember anything I really said, but I remember thinking, I'm gonna take a bullet for the country. That's
Wow.
what the only thought in my mind, and I was fucking terrified when I thought that, and I kept doing it. Went through boot camp, and everything was fine, right? But I remember that, and so that my purpose was that, and how terrified I was, and I kept doing it. And I was like, okay, this flag is more important than anything I've ever done, right? Because it represents Well, I don't need to tell you what the flag represents,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of blood in flying that American flag, and but when you're brand new in the service, right? I'm going to say, and it's not a set time frame, but 8 years, 6 years, whatever it is, you're kind of going through the motions of the service. You're going to work every single day. You're doing your job every day. Let me rephrase that, right? You're doing your job every single day. You say we would say the Sailor's Creed. I'm a United States sailor. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Right?
Yeah.
We would do that, but they were words, right? And
Right.
and there's a point in your career, and it could be earlier. Mine was not earlier. Mine was about the 10, 12 year point where those words actually became another purpose for me. Right. So before it was always a flag, and I was always very proud to deploy, and I was very excited to do things and do things with and work 20 hours a day if I had to. And I did. I quite regularly did that. But it became a different, it is no longer about me and the country. It is about my sailors who actually work for me. And so then my focus became big, broad, and it became actually laser focused on the 10 individuals that were standing in front of me expecting me to teach them.
Right.
So, right. So that's if I then I figured, okay, if I can make them better versions or better operators, better technicians, maybe not better people. That really, you never know. But it was only 10 guys, right? But you also know that one guy going, oh, I went on deployment, or we went out for a week and a half, and that stripper I was dating, she just completely cleaned my house out. You gave her the keys to your house? Well, it was cold outside, so where's your dog? Oh, I don't know, but the stripper's got it. Oh my God, love America, dude. But okay, well, let's teach you some life skills, right? So there was life
Yeah.
skills, better operators, better technicians, better submariners, better humans. And I really liked it. I was,
Yeah.
oh, this is really speaking to me. And then that's what kind of permeated from that E6 at that 10-year point, and then it propelled me all the way through the senior ranks, right?
Right.
And it wasn't. I never once tried to get promoted after that. Never tried. It like, hey, you just made E7. I go, how? How did I make chief? I never put in for that. Like, well, you took the test. I'm like, well, you told me to. And then E8. How did I make that? Well, I don't know. You're ready for it. Okay. Hey, you're going to be in charge of a submarine. What the? Okay. Hey, here's your E9.
Yeah.
What the hell? Guys, knock it off. Stop promoting me. But it was very, very odd. But I think the people that I worked for saw my desire to help other people. And so that's where it came, right? So one purpose is always going to speak louder than the other. And
Right.
that is very important to me, right? The purpose of serving the country, serving the flag is still there. That will go with me till the day I die, and my grave in the back of my house, right? I've already got a cemetery plot picked out. But that other purpose is something that I can laser focus on, and I know I can do that. And if I can help people become better versions of themselves, the broader purpose, the flag, the country, will become better.
100%. And I think you really touched on something that I found, and this too because you've served with thousands of people, right? Like there are the folks who get out of service and they're fine, right? Like they figure out how to operate in whether they retired after a long career or if they got out early, they just figure out how to live in the world that's not military, right?
Right.
And then there's that other group where they just have the hardest time reintegrating into society. Or the truth is, and I think this to be true, and this is actually me, I had a hard time operating in society before I went into service, which is how I ended up in the service. It's a home for wayward boys and girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a lot of ways. And but some people figure it out during their service, and some people don't. And when I think about your organization, I think about kind of policing up some of those folks who are still trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
That they're having, like you said, maybe it's not as extreme as suicide, but for some it is. But other folks who are just, they're just commiserating.
Yeah.
They're just kind of, they're just not fully fulfilled. They're not fully expressed. They haven't found purpose and this sense of self-actualization.
Right.
And
That's
that's really what I
yes.
see when I see your organization is like, I'm gonna keep policing these. I'm gonna, you found your purpose in life by guiding, coaching, leading people to be better versions of themselves, and I just see this as a continuation of that.
It is, and to back up. So when I first retired, I didn't do anything for 6 months, right? And so it's because all that stuff, that purpose, the driven stuff that we did, and you do as senior enlisted for a long time. I mean, I was a master chief for a long time, a really long time, and a chief for even long. I made chief in 2006, seven, one of those 2 years. I
Oh
made seven.
wow.
Right, and so I was in those leadership positions for a very long time, and then as soon as I retired, done, no more. And now I'm like, I did not, and it's that transition was like, I don't know what to do. I got hired on after my retirement hunting trip I did with a buddy, which helped me probably see that 6 months I took, the 6 months hiatus was probably the best. Somebody gave me that piece of advice. I said, don't work for 6 months. Don't do shit. Don't try to find a job and just find some clarity. And I mean, a buddy, we disappeared. We had 13 tags in like 8 different states, and we disappeared for 2.5 months, just in the woods for 2.5 straight months. And then I didn't work for 6. But I got on doing government contracting for a company. A buddy of mine got me into it, and it was logistical maintenance fixing, and then working on new periscopes. We had to go create a maintenance plan for new periscopes for the new submarines. And I did that literally for 6 months. And I went, no, this is not doing it. This is not fulfilling the reason. That hole that I had from that retirement was not, I could not put enough dirt in there to fill it up. I could not get that to happen. And it became just a routine, monotonous job. I remember watching, it was The Incredibles, the cartoon, where the dad, right? And you just see him just going to work every single day, drinking his coffee, goes home, right? And it's that kind of monotone. That's exactly how I felt, right? And then hunting season came around the next year, and I'm like, hey, here's my 2-week notice. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, it's hunting season. I got no vacation saved up, so bye. And they completely flabbergasted. They had no concept of that. And I did it. And then unfortunately, I was able to actually get another job through a friend who knew what I did in the military as a command master chief. And I actually applied my skills for a company called Fortune Brands. I just got brought in actually into their center of excellence to help facilitate leadership classes through a corporation, which is interesting. I mean, we're talking about, like, we have to do like the 7 habits of effective people. Like, okay, how many times have we read that book over the years, right? I'm like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But so the thing was that what I was trying to get at is when you retire that hole, or when you get out immediately or whatever it is, there is a gap of you don't know what to do, you don't know how to acclimate. And every single person that gets out, they go through the SEPs, TAPS, GPS. I don't remember what the acronyms even stand for anymore, but you go through that course that you have to go through, right, to get out, and they give you the resume writing school and all this other shit. I will tell you, I don't remember a fucking thing.
Yeah.
None of it stuck with me. They helped me write a resume, which turned out to be absolute shit. None of it did, right? And it's just, and I was in charge of this school for how many years, and I didn't learn a single thing. In one ear, right out the other. And so we need something else to help cushion it. So if we can get an active duty to say, oh, okay, this is what's available on the outside. Hey, these foundations here, or these people want to help. They'll help you get this, right? I'm not going to necessarily maybe get somebody a job. I don't want to place somebody in a job. But if I can pair this active duty up who's maybe getting ready to get out with some other people in an environment such as backcountry hunting or anything else like that, where we get out of the comfort zone, remove that noise, now we establish relationships. And I'm a firm believer relationships help you succeed in life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the relationship is. I've got a dear friend who, without him, just being friends with him, talking with him, and then meeting people that he knows or that I know or vice versa, is the sole reason I have the job I have today. that pays the
Right.
bills, that allowed me to build a house because of a relationship I established a long time ago and a friendship that I don't want to use friendships for use. I don't want to use people. Ooh, God, that terrifies me. Right? Because sometimes you like, hey, I need to call this person because I need help with something. But then it turns into, well, the only reason I call them is when I need help. How about I just call them just to talk, just to catch up?
Yeah.
Right? And I feel I actually refrain from calling people because I need help, which is probably a bad thing, right? Because I don't want that perception that I'm just calling them because I need something. I think that's very selfish to me.
Yeah.
But it's also a
Well,
stigma that I need to get past.
I was about to say that, most of the time when you're asking someone for help, and this is what a lot of people don't get,
Mhm.
is that you're giving them a gift, right? We're talking about purpose, and
Mhm.
and really a way of thinking about purpose is
Oh, I like that.
feeling useful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're asked, I found this a lot because this is true for me. And you've probably, if you think about it, it's probably true for you. But when someone comes to you and they ask you for guidance, ask you for help, or, they even ask you for, like you said, a connection for a job or whatever, you feel like you have a purpose. You feel like you're useful.
Yes.
And I think that's what all of us really want, right? Like I think at the end of the day, we don't want to live meaningless, inconsequential, and worthless lives.
I just had a
You
damn.
know, tell
I
me, tell
literally,
me about it.
I
Yeah,
just had an epiphany, right? So I'm sitting here talking about the purpose of the twin screws. I'm talking about my purpose on how my purpose is to help other people. So if a friend of mine I haven't talked to in years calls me up and says, "Hey, I need help," or "Hey, do you know somebody? Hey, how do I get this job?" or "How do I do that?" I live for that. That
yes,
is absolutely
yes,
amazing. And you know what? I'm getting stuck in my damn head is because the friends I'm calling and asking them for the help is the exact same thing that people are doing to me that I want them to do.
yes, yes. You're giving them a gift by asking for the
Son of
help.
a bitch. Brian,
Yeah.
Tosh, I hope you're listening.
Yeah. Right. And some people might be pulled a little thin, or they're a little over wherever they're at in their lives, might feel a
Right.
little so maybe they can't help you in that moment, or they can't give you all the attention that they would like to give you. But I would guess that almost nobody ever just feels
No,
frustrated or
you're right.
burdened,
No, you're
you
right.
know?
You're right. And maybe part of my stigma is some of my friends that my mentors, I should say, my mentors, right? I don't want to say they're popular in the social world, in the social media world.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't. Maybe it's my big fear is I don't want to appear that I'm taking advantage of somebody who has popularity, right? So if
Yeah.
you have like an entourage, if you have a friend that's a celebrity, right? How many horror stories have you heard that people won the lotto or whatever? Now they're big famous celebrities. Now they got all these friends and family that are coming out of the woodworks and they want their hands out, right? And I think that's part of my roadblock I need to get past because I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I think you're taking a leap that is different, right? Like
Is it okay?
hitting the lottery, you didn't earn that, right? You just
True.
got lucky, right? But the people I think you're talking about work their asses off. They put in the time, the hours, and the work to gain that notoriety, to gain that success. And I would argue that they gained it so that they can give it away, so that they can help, so that they can be influential, so that they can make an impact,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. Well,
Ethan.
yeah, and I get the same way. Like, well, here, like again, I said I was a wayward boy, right? And the truth is I grew up in an environment where I felt like I was a burden to everybody. I felt unwanted. I felt like I was a burden, and so that's carried into my adult life. Like I never ask for help, but mainly just because I feel like I'm burdening everybody, right?
Right.
But that's
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
how I feel.
limitation here,
I do
you
feel that
know.
way because I don't want somebody to spend their time on me. I think because I've always been solve the problem. I've been the problem solver, right? Been
Right.
Have you ever heard the message, Garcia? You ever heard that?
No.
So I'm going to paraphrase it, right? It's an essay, and it was written, I think it was in the early 1900s. I encourage you to look it up. Right? It's a 1-page, 2-page essay, and Garcia. Garcia was a general fighting, and I think it was Cuba. I think it was Cuba, and the president needed to get a message to him, right? And so he found a sergeant. He's like, "Hey, I have a message. Get it to Garcia." That messenger did not ask any questions. He did not ask where Garcia was. He did not ask anything. He said, "Aye, turn around," and made it happen. Now, this is the late 1800s, early 1900s. What does somebody need to go through to travel from Washington, D.C. to Cuba?
Yeah.
Time frame without asking, not even knowing where he is, but he gets the message to him, right? So what that really speaks to, now it's a very rough paraphrase. I haven't read it in a couple of years, right? But when you have somebody and you ask them or you tell them to do something, right? Or if you want them to do something or whatever the case is, you have two kinds of people. You have the people who are going to go, why? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? What's in it for me? Where is this person? Where is that? What kind of car do I need? Do I need to put gas in the car? What kind of train? Do I need to get a train ticket? Right? And all these questions like, well, why don't I just do it for you? Or you get the person who says, got it. And he goes and makes it happen. Right?
Yeah.
I've always been that person who says, got it. I'll make it happen. And about like 20 minutes later, I'm like, hey, who do I talk to?
What am I doing? Wait,
yeah. What am I doing again? and I'll do that, right? And it'll happen like the first time. Like, okay, all right. I'll call somebody who's like up here, like, hey, I got to do this. Who do I talk to? And then I can start figuring it out on my own. But anyway, it kind of speaks to that, what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I think that and I want to figure this shit out on my own.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes the problem, right? And actually, this I think speaks volumes to what you and I are talking about. How do we help veterans who are struggling with transition, right? Part of the reason why they're struggling with transition is because they developed an identity. Yes. Right? Like they got locked into, this is who I am, this is how I am, and this is how I've kind of provided, this is how I've been useful. And when things change for them, they don't have the ability to be anything else, right? Like in your particular example, you're the problem solver. You're the guy who your chief could come to and be like, Cook, do this. And you're like, Roger that, I'll figure it out. Right. And when you lost the ability to be that person, it was difficult.
It was very, very difficult. Right. I didn't know how to close that chapter.
Right.
Which, I mean, it's a discussion. I still don't know necessarily how do you delicately, or does it even need to be delicate, right? If you have a person, right, who's maybe just transitioned out and they're having they got to have this identity crisis, right? And it's going to happen. Yeah. How do you get them to close that chapter? Right. I think I have been fairly successful in my own personal life of closing my military chapter, which I'll tell you, it was my goal 12 years old up until the day I retired. That's all I ever wanted.
That was your dream.
And then after that, I'm like, the last time I was able to grow a beard, I was 17, but I grow like one hair. Right. And so it's like, I didn't know what to do. And I think, through my mentors, I was able to close that chapter, I think a little slower than I wanted, because there were some rough days, there were some dark days. But how do we get somebody to close that chapter, right? Because we see the guys who haven't closed that chapter yet, and they could be 50, 60, 70-year-old vets that are still in there. A matter of fact, quick story. So we did our first Twin Screws event was up in Vermont. We did a turkey hunt.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh God, it was way better than I could ever imagine, right? But there was the guy that we brought, a veteran, was he was a corpsman, a Navy corpsman. He was a rescue swimmer. He flew in helicopters, fell out of helicopters and rescued people, right? And his name's Jeff. And Jeff is older. He's in his 50s. Well, he had struggled with finding his purpose and finding some things, and he had a lot of resentment and a lot of blame from his service days, and he had gotten out of the military in the 80s, right? And he still kind of harbored something. He couldn't let things go, and I wouldn't tell you if I knew, right, what the specific things he couldn't really let go. But when he got to this camp and he met John, who's one of our board members. He got to meet our active duty guy, Josh, right? Me, my buddy Jr., whose property it was, and just, hey, listen, this is what we do. We're just here to help you, and or not help you, or just be here for you and listen to you, right? And maybe banter back and forth and get into some old things. And I saw the course of the 3 days we were out there, 4 days we were out there, him go from kind of just a very skeptical, very sheltered person. We couldn't get him to shut up when we were done. Right? And it was the biggest smile on my face when that happened, right? And he's a thriving human being again. He feels like he is again a part of society, right?
Yeah.
And but he's in his 50s. So how do
Right.
we do that to somebody who maybe just retired or just got out after 4 years of service, right? And, hey, you need to shut that chapter. You need to shut it.
Yeah.
This is what
And
we do to look forward.
I
I don't know
mean,
how to
I
do
don't
that.
know. I don't know that I have the answers either, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and how I live my days now is largely trying to solve that problem. And where I've landed on it is really three things, and they've become my own purpose in life. Number one is purpose, right? Like finding a way to be useful and to feel like you have a mission that's bigger than like what you're doing like at your job or anything like that. Like in the military, we get locked into being, you were a submariner, right?
Mhm,
I'm an infantryman,
mhm.
and you get locked into that. But then when that gets yanked out from under you for whatever reason, when that's gone, if all you were thinking about was that, so having purpose that's bigger, that's broader than anything that can be defined as like a job or a role.
Yeah.
And then like what you provided for that gentleman, who which I think is mostly important, is we all need to feel connected. We all need to feel like we have a community. We have people around us who care about us, who we can go to, who we can also contribute to. And if we don't have that, I think where people struggle with the military is when that, because they had a community, whether they even liked that community or not, they 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 relied on it. And when
Yeah.
that community gets pulled out from under them, and they got too comfy and cozy with that particular community, they have a hard time kind of finding a new one.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and
100%.
and then the last part for me is self actualization, meaning like how can I just be who I am?
Mhm.
How can I walk in this world and be unapologetic in my values, in my purpose, and what I'm trying to accomplish in this life, and just like own that shit and not worry about what anyone else has to say about it. You
You
know?
are touching on the new, I think not new. I mean, it's been around since, we'll go ancient Roman philosophers, but the new Stoicism, right? This new
Yeah,
push and this new, I want to say it is a new push for Stoicism, right?
yeah. I mean, Stoicism has come back in a big way.
Uh-huh. And I think
Yeah,
it's very, very important because I think it speaks to the opposite of like toxic masculinity, right? Which a lot of people talk about this toxic masculinity now, and it's not good and all that. And honestly, it's not, right? And there's people out there that have those personalities
sure.
that do that. But I think real masculinity and stoicism is very, very important and needed in our society, right? And I absolutely love it. I've actually made a new push so to improve myself every single day, right? I will now, and this is, there's physical and the mental side of it is physical. If I had a cold plunge here, I would do that, but I don't. But I have my salt water, my electrolytes in the morning, and I read. I try to read for half an hour, whatever
Yeah,
it is I'm reading. Right? It could be fiction, it could be nonfiction. It's just getting my mind working and my eyeballs working and getting that mental. We hallucinate when we read, right? So that's I'm
yeah,
getting my hallucinations going through reading, and I think that's helped me focus a lot. And I've literally just restarted that in the last week, and I think it's made it's huge leaps and bounds and a lot more clarity, a lot more lot less fog, and my boredom through the day is less, I should say, because
yeah,
you're scrolling and doing things on your phone. You wake up in the morning, you get on your phone, you check your email and stuff like that, and just taking that 30 minutes, and calming myself down a little bit, have a cup of coffee, right? Read a little bit. It's changed. It's done wonders
Totally.
up here.
Yeah. And, this is like something that I think is majorly underrated is people's habits. That thing that you talked about, I know fitness is a big part of your life, like your health and your fitness and how
Yeah.
you choose to do hard things. That's including like the backcountry hunting trips and all that stuff. And those are habits that you have. And I think that what you do on a regular basis ultimately is what facilitates the outcomes in your life.
Right.
Good, bad, and different.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's why it's big to me. When I spend a lot of time when I'm trying to mentor, coach, lead somebody to be living a happy, healthy, successful life, it really comes down to what are you doing daily?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And with the fitness, right? And I've always been able to, when I was active duty, chief, every year we would make new chiefs. And actually right now, chief season is in full swing. We're making brand new E7s.
Yeah, you guys in the indoctrination business right now?
Initiation. We went back to the magical
Initiation.
word of initiation. And so
Oh,
it's 8 weeks. When I made chief, you don't realize how stupid you are, right? You've been in the Navy. You could be in the Navy for 20 years, and as soon as your name goes on that list, you just become the stupidest human being on planet Earth. You're like, and then over the next 6-7 weeks, you learn how to ask for help. You learn more about the inner workings, policy, and then you learn a lot of different things, right? And then when you're done, hopefully, when you're done after the 6-7 weeks, you're the chief. Right, your guys don't know how long you've been a chief. They think you've been a chief forever. So you better be ready with the answers, or at least know where to get them. But what was I just talking about?
you were talking about your daily habits. We were talking about your habits.
So
Yeah.
So for a lot of years, I was. They put me in charge of the physical fitness aspect of chief season. So we'd have 150, 200 sailors, and we would go through physical fitness every single morning. Right. Well, it was team building and everything else, and I learned through the sport of fitness that we do how hard it is, right? Because it's only a 10-minute workout or a 15 or a 20-minute workout. There is a point during this workout, because of the intensity that we put on ourselves, which is a great analogy for life also, right? You put the amount of intensity that you want into your life, it's going to get really, really hard. Your mind is going to wander, or you're going to wonder what you're doing. You're going to want to quit. You're going to want to do all these things. Now, this is only a 20-minute window that we do physical fitness in, right? 20 minutes, and you want to quit 30 times. Right? And then what I tell myself this morning's workout was a great example. I wanted to quit, I don't know how many times. And I go, all right, I'm not going to finish this particular workout, but I'm going to work for the right amount of time. And if I can get through that, I'm going to be that much stronger. Not that much stronger, not this much stronger, just that much stronger and mentally, and I won't have the regret that I quit, right? And it's only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But you can translate that to every single habit that you do, every part of life that you do. Is if you can do something, okay, well, this hurts, this physically hurts, this mentally hurts, this does this for this amount of time. All right, I can do that. Then you build endurance, then you build discipline. Right, and if you can,
and then you build confidence.
Oh my God! And then they become easier. But the only way for it to get easier is to do the hard shit first, and that's where I think people they struggle to ask for help. Right? If there was somebody that could help me with the clean and jerks this morning, I would have asked for absolute help. Right? But the help I got from Nick was, he gave me verbal encouragement, right? He helped me verbally and mentally, and that helped me pick it up. Not him picking up the weight, which would have been great. Hey, I need you to do 5 reps, buddy. But he gave me the mental help to do that. And I think that's where foundation comes in. This is where you come in. This is where your business, your legit business comes in, is to help. This business is not here for your own personal gain, Ethan, right? You own a big, huge fitness facility. Right? Mm-hmm. Which we got classes, all kinds of classes. You got jiu-jitsu, you got kids, you got chiropractors, you got massage, you got all this stuff. You don't do it for your own personal gain. That every single thing there has a purpose of helping somebody become better people or better versions of themselves, be it physically or mentally. Whatever their goal is, it's all encompassing. Right.
100%. And I think, it took me a long time to figure that out.
Mhm.
Like truthfully, when I can be totally honest about this now because I've got some time and some time to kind of like be introspective about it. But when I first got into business, I it was all about me. I wanted to be important. I wanted to be special. I wanted to show people what I was capable of. I wanted to be praised. My ego was just out of control,
Mm.
and there was no joy in that. It
No.
was a deep, dark, relentless, and unfulfilling hole that I just kept digging myself into, and really, again, just kind of like what we've been talking about in this conversation is once I realized that it's not about me, it's about what I can give to other people, it's about what can I do to contribute and be useful and have purpose.
Wow.
That's when all my joy came. Like the truth is, I'm honestly making substantially less money now than I was back then, but I am happier and more fulfilled and just like love my life so much more. And
Good.
there's no price tag for that. You can't
No,
put
you can't.
you can't pay for that.
It's very hard to get that across too sometimes for the people that are in that struggle of trying to be the more successful, the money side of it. It is very, very hard to do that. And I think the only answer to that is just be patient and be there for them when they need it.
Yeah.
And the light bulb will go off when it's ready to go off for them. I don't think they're
Yes.
forced in any way. Sometimes it might not go off. Sometimes it might go off early. But if you're there for them the whole entire time, I think it's going to be it's an amazing journey. It's watching somebody succeed and watching them see or do something that they think they couldn't do brings more joy to my heart than anything else, right?
Oh,
Um,
there's nothing better.
right. But when I first coached, I think it was only my first or second CrossFit classes I ever coached. There was a gal, and I don't know, she's probably in her early 60s, and we had box jumps, right? And I remember she was stepping up on whatever box, and she goes, "I really want to jump on a box." I'm like, "Okay." And she goes, "It's too tall." I'm like, "All right." So we went and grabbed another one. It was like maybe 8 inches off the ground, and
Yeah.
over the next 5 minutes, I mean 5 minutes, right? It was a long time. We watched the courage to get up and try it, then the quit, the courage to try, back and forth for 5 minutes. And when she finally did it, she jumped and she cleared it and she made it on top. It was one of the most joyous. I mean, it was a party in the gym, right?
Yes.
And watching her do that was the most amazing thing ever. And I went, "Oh, I get it. I get it for this." And then from there, I was able to immediately. I went, "Well, this is just like work. This is just like the service, right? This is just like this." And you can translate it to the corporate world, to whatever you want to do. It's all the same, right? You have the courage to take that jump, to take the leap, to do it. And whether you fail, got it. We can fail 100 times. But the one time you succeed, it becomes that much easier.
Yeah. And when I think about, I'm not a judgmental person at all, but when I think about suicide, right?
Mm.
Something that you're trying to make an impact on, even though I know that's not entirely what the mission is about, but I know that that's a bit of it.
A byproduct.
Is that, yeah, it's the ultimate quitting,
Yes.
and I don't wish pain and suffering on any person. Like to the extent that like if I was suffering and in so much pain that I felt like I needed to end it some way, I hope that people wouldn't think horribly of me. But to me, like you said, the example you just had, she can quit. She could have not jumped on that box and it's still not over yet because there would be another chance and another chance and another chance. But that's really the hard part of like being the infinite quitting is ending it all by ending a life that has so much opportunity and has so much potential, even if things are really fucking shitty right now.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
it's
Yeah, I can see that. I can absolutely
yeah.
see that.
What are your thoughts on?
Well, I gotta think about if the ultimate quitting thing. I think I have to sit on that one, and I absolutely see that point of view of quitting, but is quitting the same thing as giving up? Is it maybe the justification in their mind isn't the quitting? The
Yeah.
justification in a mind is it could be, well, people are just going to be better off without me, or this is
Yeah.
less of a burden without me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it might not necessarily be the quitting piece. It might, they think it is, right? But now there's different aspects to why somebody commits suicide, right? So I think it was 6 months ago, 7 months ago, there was a Navy SEAL full bird captain, an '06, who committed suicide, and he had just taken command, right? Well, 2 months before that, a friend of mine that I served with committed suicide in the submarine force. So the cause, I think, are very, very different, and this is why we're never going to be able to solve this problem, right? So when it
Right.
comes to a combatant, an operator, right? Yourself, you're an infantryman. You guys are subject to concussive forces. You guys are subject to a lot of different things physically that are invisible, like the old shell shock syndrome, right? PTSD, and then there's visual traumas also of being in combat, close quarters combat, being on the ground. A submariner, we don't have close quarters combat, right? We don't see what you guys see, and we don't do what you guys do. We push a button and I launch a missile and it flies 1,000 miles away,
Right.
right? Now, is there concussive forces? There are some, right? I mean, I've ruptured my eardrums probably 3 or 4 times. I've had probably about 15 concussions just from hitting in a submarine,
Yeah.
right? And there are things that do
There's
want
nowhere to
to kill
go.
you down there, but it's usually the environment that wants to kill you, or pressure changes, or whatever the case is, right? The concussive forces that we experience are nothing like getting like shot at, getting blown up, getting whatever the case is, right? So, but the end result was exactly the same.
Right.
What was that road? How do we identify it? I don't think we ever will. So it goes to there is how do we just help one person, or how maybe we see one person? I'll go back, my friend Tosh again, right? He has a great analogy, and we can look at, and it's probably on YouTube. You just go the check engine light, and he talks about a check engine light on a car, right? When you check engine light first comes on, right? You're like, oh, well, okay, maybe something's wrong, right? And if you have not a lot of money, you can't fix your car, or you're not mechanically inclined. You know how long you can ride that check engine light before it starts blinking, and then it really shouldn't break down.
Right.
Humans are the same way, right? Our check engine light is on. Like, I'll tell you, my check engine light is on right now, and it's bright, right? Because there's some things that I got some pokers in the fire that are like, I'm very uncertain about the future of these things.
Right.
But talking to you, talking to my other mentors, right, and talking to just, well, you, a friend, helps me keep that check engine light it dims it down quite a bit.
Right.
Right. And I will not let it, well, that's a lie. I will say I will not let it become a blinking check engine light, because I don't really necessarily how to stop that, except for just to keep talking and keep doing things. The moment I clam up, then I think it's going to start blinking. Years ago, I got really stressed out about something and I didn't do any of it. And I actually came down with shingles because of
Yeah. Oh,
this.
yeah. Your
Shit
body. Yeah, I was about to say, if you don't take care of business,
out.
it's gonna come out one way or the other.
Right.
You know.
Now, I'll tell you, Tosh explains that check engine light much more eloquently than I just did. But
Well,
the concept is very real, right?
yes.
It's taking care of yourself, and it's going to come on. I bet you your check engine light is on right now, right?
All the time. All the
Exactly.
time. Well, and I think that the example of a vehicle is actually a beautiful one for human beings. I think we get it because we understand cars. Like, as with a car, right? Like, first of all, you use your vehicle to get somewhere. You use your body and you use your mind and you use your spirit to get somewhere. So those analogies are akin to each other. But also, just like any car, like, yeah, my check engine light might come on once, and then I'll take it to the shop and they'll do whatever they do to it to get that light to come off. But guess what? About 3,000 or 4,000 miles again down the road, it's going to come back on. It's, the tires always need maintenance. You always need oil. You always need gas. There's all these other things, right? So it's a never ending process, and it's true for humans also.
It is. And to take that even further, if you keep taking it to the shop, now this is a difference because some kind of cars may be a little bit more complicated. It's like kind of going to the doctor and you're just going to go get fixed and you're going to on your way, but you don't know what's causing that check engine light to come on. You
Right.
just go, hey, it's on, fix it. All right, thank you. And you go and you drive it into the ground, right? You keep doing that. Now, if you become, and you're a gearhead, and I'm a gearhead, right? I've been
Yeah.
with a couple of Jeeps, is you learn how to become self-sufficient. So if that light comes on, you're like, okay, well, this is what's causing it. Now I can bring it, I can do my own maintenance, and I can do my own preventative maintenance,
Right.
right? And preventative maintenance could be fitness in the morning. It could be just watching the sunrise in the morning or watching the sunset, right? Spending time with your loved ones. All these things are that maintenance that we go into ourselves to keep our hearts full and to keep our souls going in the right direction. And that's the preventative maintenance like you would do on a car. Like I got a brand new truck. Well, I change my oil. I change my fuel filter. I rotate my tires. I do my own brakes. Now, when it comes to fixing the computer, because it's a 2024, sorry, I need help, right?
Yeah.
Or phone a friend.
Exactly. Right. And I think that's again, it's still a beautiful analogy, right? Like there are things you can do on your own if you feel competent enough and confident enough to do it. But there's always going to be something that you need help with that's beyond your scope of expertise, right?
Right. They could be help you. Hey, we got to swap the axle on your truck, right? You know how to do it by yourself, but you can't do it by yourself, right?
Right.
Now there's an issue in your life, Ethan, where you know how to fix it, but you need help fixing it.
Yes.
And that's
And not having shame in that.
yeah.
You know, that's, I think, a lot of what it comes down to for me. And that's really where, you know, is like not judging living a life that is fully expressed and fully fulfilled is a lot of, it's not how other people think about us. It's like how I think about me. I judge myself 10 times worse than anyone else judges me. You know, and the guilt and the shame and the the discomfort that comes with asking for help or having a problem or doing something stupid, which I've done a gazillion times in my life.
Right.
Not letting that defeat you or even making that a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And that's honestly the active duty piece of the foundation. That's one of the biggest things is I call it the root cause, right? I served on nuclear power submarines, and so if something goes wrong, we stop, we get together, we're like, all right, let's find out exactly what's the root cause of this problem. Let's put corrective actions in place, right? And so when it comes to veteran issues, I don't think these problems surface when you become a veteran. These problems they happen early in a career somewhere. And maybe it got puked away somewhere and it got compartmentalized and then it surfaces later on. So if I can attempt to maybe address that root cause a little bit more, I think down the road, the solutions will be easier to come up.
Yes.
And a great example is when I had Josh. Josh was my active duty guy for our veteran turkey hunt, right? And we were going through everything, and he was a young E5. My stipulation was I wanted an E4, E5 who wasn't a rock star and who's not a complete shitbag, right? But somebody in the middle on the fence that maybe had some issues earlier in their career.
They could go either way.
It could go either way, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted them, and it was very evident because when we asked him questions, he's like, oh, I already know all that. I already know how to fix this. I already know that. Yeah, I know this. And it was that compartmentalization where he did not want to admit any kind of weakness whatsoever. And I will tell you, as an active duty, because we always say, hey, listen, if you have problems, if you're having mental issues, whatever it is, come forward. You're not going to be judged, and your career is not going to be hurt, right? That's a catchphrase that we always say in the military. Your career is not going to be hurt. That's a lie. I'll tell you straight up. Being in charge for a long ass time, your career will be paused, right? And it's not necessarily, that's not the bad thing. The bad thing is the mental anguish. If you, okay, I'm having a mental issue. I'm having a real time struggling with something. I can't, whatever the case is. Hey, I need help. They're going to take me off the ship now, and they're going to get me the help that I need, which is amazing. And the military will always do that. But now there's the mental
That's a good thing.
Of leaving my team, who's already, everyone is undermanned, right? We're under capacity across almost every armed service, right? And now you're
Yes.
leaving that team and leaving them even more shorthanded. And that would weigh on me more than just being there and living with my own issue.
Right. But that goes to what I was saying too. It's like you're more worried about what everyone else thinks or what everyone else feels than what you need to do for yourself in that moment.
Correct. But it weighs on me even more. And I think this is very true across the board, is because this is why people don't ask for help. Right? There's a
Yes.
pride aspect to it, which I get, right? But you don't want to leave everyone else hanging, because what we do is a team sport, right? There is not an military is not an individual sport at any level. They say
Yeah.
it's only
Well,
at top,
just life,
but it's still a team sport.
society. Yeah, I mean, not just the military, but everywhere you go, everywhere you are, everything, every life that you come across, it's a team sport.
Yep,
You know.
100%,
Yeah.
100%, man. Well,
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the. I've taken you way over longer than what I promised you I would,
okay.
and
I think we're going to a high school football game tonight down the road. That's
oh,
our
cool.
plans for the evening. We're going to watch some
That's
Smithfield football.
Texas Friday Night Lights, baby. Let's go. Um, well, I appreciate. Let me just end with just a massive amount of gratitude. I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate what you've given. I appreciate that you've been a friend to me and what you mean in my personal life, but also all the other lives that you are touching, that you have touched, and you're going to. I love being around people like you, and I'm just so grateful, man. And thank you for being on the show.
Ethan, I'm going to echo everything you just took all the words out of my mouth, so I don't really have much more to say. But you're opening the doors, you're opening your heart, you're opening your family to me and my family, and my extended family through Twin Screws and everything. And
Yeah.
I am glad I live here now.
Yes. Well,
It's
I am
going to be
glad
a long,
you
great
do
life.
too. Yeah, my life would be less. My life would have something missing if you weren't around. So I appreciate that, and yeah. So we'll bring it to a close. Thank you for being on the show, and yeah. One last thing. Sorry. Tell people how they can find you. Tell
Oh,
people, yeah, like about Twin Screws. Like, do you
okay.
have a Instagram or a
Yeah.
website or anything like so
So,
how they can find you?
twinscrewsfoundation.org will give you to the website. There's a donation page there. Hit it. That'd be
Yes,
amazing.
donate.
Please donate. At $5 is $5 we didn't have 10 minutes ago, right?
That's right.
And there's my Instagram, which is Jess 1276 is my personal Instagram, and then Twin Screws Foundation Instagram on there. Currently, we have a competition at your gym scheduled for the 19th of October. This is to raise money for the foundation so we can keep doing what we're doing, bringing veterans into the backcountry, into spaces away from the noise, so we can kind of shed our egos and figure out what's really bothering us, right? And unfortunately, that takes money. Revision Barbell is gracious enough. They're getting us 2 custom barbells. Now, to win those barbells is not winning the competition, which is its own thing. If you donate or if you sign up for the competition, or I can send you a link, you can create your own donation page, and for every dollar you raise, you get 1 entry into the bucket to win a custom barbell. There is going to be a
We'll
45
put
pound.
that link in the show notes
Yes,
actually.
we'll do
So
that.
so we'll
Yeah,
make sure that people can get that.
perfect. There's a 45-pound barbell and a 35-pound barbell, right? So however big your hands are, it's when you're going to win. But it's a custom Twin Screws barbell. They're getting it Cerakoted for me. It's going to be. I'm really excited to get these barbells,
That's amazing.
and then give them out. And then the competition itself, and we're working on vendors and all this, and getting the word out. I'm driving this week. I'm putting some miles on the truck this weekend, hanging flyers in different gyms all around Central Texas.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
the links are going to be down below. I guess is it down below?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
People will find them in the show notes. So
perfect,
so
beautiful.
they'll be able to come to the competition. If you're a vendor, if you have a business, if you'd like to donate prizes, there's lots of ways to contribute. If you just want to give money, all those are amazing ways to support this amazing foundation. So
Appreciate it. Appreciate you, Ethan.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, have a great rest of your evening. Have fun at the football game.
You, sir. Enjoy.